If you were born between the 6th of April 1971 and the 5th of April 1973, you are sitting inside a gap in the pension rules that could cost you £24,000 if you get the timing wrong. Not a vague gap, an exact one, measured in months, sometimes only days, where your own pension turns into a locked box you cannot touch. Most people in that birth window think the fix is simple. The access age is moving from 55 to 57, so you wait 2 extra years. That is not how HMRC actually wrote it. Your personal lockout could run the full 24 months. It could be 15. It could be 3 days. For a small number of people, it is 0. And there is a move you can make before the 6th of April 2028 that keeps a door open which is closing for almost everyone else. It costs as little as £1. I have watched people assume they were safe because their birthday felt close enough to the old rules, then find out a few weeks made the entire difference. By the end of this video, you will know the exact calendar for your birth month, the trick that keeps your access alive, and the number you need sitting in savings to cover whatever gap is left. To understand why the trick works at all, you first have to see what HMRC actually built here, because it is not really about your age. It is about whether your money has already been touched. If you are in that early 70s window, stay with me. The difference between checking this now and finding out at 55 could be £268,275, the full tax-free lump sum you have spent 30 years building. The lockout exists because of one date. On the 6th of April 2028, the normal minimum pension age jumps from 55 to 57. If you turn 55 on the 5th of April 2028, you have about 24 hours to get your paperwork in before the door swings shut for 2 years. Here is the part almost nobody explains properly. The age rise does not care how old you turn out to be later. It cares about one thing only, whether your pension money has already been crystallized, meaning moved into a state where you have started drawing on it, before that date arrives. Uncrystallized money, the kind just sitting untouched in your pot, falls under whatever rule applies on the day you actually try to touch it. If that day is after the 6th of April 2028 and you are not yet 57, the answer is no. Picture someone born on the 5th of April 1973. They turn 55 the day before the new rule takes effect. On paper, they still qualify under the old age. In practice, their pension provider needs time to process a request, often 10 working days or more. By the time the paperwork clears, the 6th of April has already passed, the rule has already changed, and their application gets judged under the new age instead of the old one. They end up locked out for close to 23 months, not because they did anything wrong, but because they were 3 days too close to the edge. Think of it the way you would a council tax deadline. Paying a day late does not erase the bill, it just means you missed the window that mattered. The pension system works the same way, except the bill here is measured in months of locked access rather than a late fee. HMRC has confirmed this timing through its own pensions tax manual, and it is worth sitting with what that actually means. The trade-off nobody puts plainly is this: waiting to decide is not a neutral choice. Every month you leave your pension exactly as it is. You are not preserving flexibility. You are gambling that your birthday and your provider's processing time land on the right side of a line you never got to choose. There is a second trap layered on top of this one: taking your pension in bits and pieces, using what is called an uncrystallized funds pension lump sum, feels flexible right now. Each time you take a payment that way, you are crystallizing a small slice of your pot at that exact moment. After the 6th of April 2028, that kind of fresh crystallization is only allowed once you turn 57. So the method that feels safest today, taking a little when you need it, becomes the one method that stops working the day you need it most. But what if crystallizing just £1 of your pension right now could be the thing that keeps the whole door open? Here is the piece that actually protects you, and it has a name worth remembering: the Active Access Bridge. The idea is simple, even though the rule behind it is not. Before the 6th of April 2028, you move a portion of your pension into what is called Flexi Access Drawdown, and you crystallize a small amount of it, even as little as £1. That single act designates the money. From that point forward, that slice of your pension counts as already crystallized, and crystallized money is not touched by the age rise. It stays reachable at 55, 56, or 57, regardless of which side of the deadline you happen to be standing on. I used to think uncrystallized funds, pension lump sums, were the simplest route for this generation to retire a little early. Watching these draft rules take shape changed my mind. For anyone born in the early 1970s, drawdown is now the safer choice because it is the one method that keeps working after the deadline instead of stopping cold. Let's put a number on it. Say you crystallize £1,000 of your pension before the deadline. You can take up to £250 of that as tax-free cash, the standard 25% most pension savers already know. The remaining £750 does not vanish or lock up. It sits inside a crystallized drawdown account, and you can still draw a taxable income from it after the 6th of April 2028, even if you have not turned 57 yet. Compare that to leaving the same £1,000 untouched. After the deadline, that money is frozen until your 57th birthday, no matter how small the amount or how much you actually need it. There is a trade-off worth naming honestly. Crystallizing early means locking in your tax-free cash entitlement on today's pension value, not a future, possibly larger one. If your pension grows significantly between now and 57, you have used up some of your tax-free allowance on a smaller pot than you might have had later. For most people in this birth window, the certainty of keeping access is worth more than squeezing a slightly larger tax-free sum out of a pot they cannot touch anyway. But it is still a real cost, not a free lunch, and you should know you are making that trade rather than discovering it later. There is also a trap hiding inside all of this. Plenty of people assume that because they have already taken some pension income, in any form, they are automatically covered. HMRC's draft guidance says otherwise. Only the specific money that has actually been crystallized is protected. If you have a workplace pension you have never touched, sitting alongside a personal pension you have drawn from, the untouched one is still fully exposed to the age rise. Being retired in a general sense does not protect a pot you have not personally crystallized. In practice, this is a phone call, not a project. You contact your pension provider, ask whether your scheme allows flexi-access drawdown, and ask them to crystallize a small nominal amount before the deadline. Some providers set a minimum, so £1 is the ideal in theory. In practice it might be £100 or £500, depending on your scheme's rules, which is still a tiny fraction of a pension you have spent decades building. The point is not the size of the amount. The point is the date it happens. Even once you have used this trick, you are not necessarily finished. Whatever portion of your pension you have not crystallized, and whatever gap sits between your birthday and 57, still needs covering from somewhere. Do you know your number yet? Now for the calendar itself, because early 1970s is not precise enough to actually plan around. If you were born on or before the 6th of April 1971, you turn 57 on or before the day the new rule even takes effect. The age rise never applies to you at all. Your gap is zero, whether you take action or not. From there, the gap grows the later your birthday falls inside the window. Someone born on the 6th of April, 1972 turns 55 in 2027, well before the deadline, so they can still crystallize under the old rules if they act in time. But if they take no action at all, they will not turn 57 until the 6th of April 2029, a full 12 months after the door closes. That is a real, calculable gap. Here is the bridge math. If that 12-month gap needs covering, and you are living on £2,000 a month, the number you need sitting outside your pension is £24,000. That is 12 months multiplied by £2,000, and it is the exact figure from the start of this video. Now you can see where it actually comes from. Move further toward the end of the window, and the gap widens. Someone born on the 5th of April 1973, the very last day before the cut-off, turns 55 one day before the deadline, and does not turn 57 until the 5th of April 2030. Left unprotected, that is close to a 24-month gap, and at £2,000 a month, that is £48,000 sitting exposed. This is why the calendar matters more than the headline. 2 years is not what most people in this window are actually facing. Some face nothing. Some face close to 2 years. Most face something in between, and the only way to know your own number is to count the months between the 6th of April, 2028, and your own 57th birthday. There are 2 paths from here. One is the fragility path, where you do nothing, hit the wall in 2028, and either go back to work you had planned to leave or lean on high-interest borrowing to cover the gap. The other is the resilience path, using an ISA allowance of £20,000 a year, this year and next, to build your bridge outside the pension system entirely, where HMRC's age rules cannot touch it at all. Worth knowing while you plan this. From the 6th of April 2027, the amount you can put into a cash ISA specifically falls to £12,000 a year if you are under 65, though the full £20,000 overall ISA allowance stays in place if some of it goes into stocks and shares instead. If your bridge plan leans entirely on cash, that change is worth building around now, rather than discovering it later. 12 months is roughly the stretch between one car insurance renewal and the next. Picture funding that entire stretch out of savings, with no pension income landing at all. That is what the gap actually feels like from the inside. None of that requires guesswork. It requires one calendar and one calculator, sitting side by side, before you decide anything else about your retirement date. But bridge money sitting in cash or investments carries its own risk. What happens if the market drops right when you are relying on it? Now stress test it, because deadlines rarely arrive alone. Picture a 10% drop in markets landing in early 2028, right as the lockout begins. 2 people, same birth window, very different outcomes. The unprepared version of this story is someone born in March 1973 who never built a bridge and never used the crystallization trick. Their pension is fully locked. Their ISA, if they have one, is thin or empty because retirement always felt far enough away to leave for later. When the market drops and the bills keep coming, they only have 2 real options: sell other assets at a loss right at the bottom, or delay retirement and go back to earning an income they had already planned to walk away from. The prepared version of the same birth window did one of 2 things ahead of time. Either they used the £1 drawdown trick, so at least the crystallized portion of their pension keeps paying out taxable income regardless of the market's mood that month, or they built the £24,000 to £48,000 cash bridge, sitting completely outside the pension, untouched by both the age rule and the day-to-day swings of a falling market. Here is why a 2-year buffer specifically matters, not just any buffer. After the 2008 downturn, markets took roughly a year and a half to 2 years to meaningfully recover for people who stayed invested and did not need to sell. A bridge of that length is not arbitrary caution. It is close to what many advisors treat as the practical minimum for anyone who might need to draw money during a downturn, rather than wait it out. £2,000 a month is not an abstract number either. It is roughly what a modest mortgage payment, a car finance payment, and an energy bill add up to for a lot of households in this age group. A gap in that income is not a paperwork inconvenience. It is a genuine month-by-month shortfall. The uncomfortable truth is that the pension lockout and a market downturn do not check each other's calendars. They can land in the exact same month, and if they do, the difference between the prepared and unprepared version of this story is not luck. It is whether you did the calendar math while you still had time to. There is one more thing that trips people up before they even get this far: a belief that their specific pension is protected, based on paperwork from years ago that may not mean what they think it means. Before you assume any of this is happening to you, there is a belief worth checking first, because it quietly stops a lot of people from taking action in time. Plenty of people in this birth window remember a pension handbook, sometimes decades old, that says normal retirement age 55 in black and white, and assume that number is locked in for good. In most cases, it is not, unless you already held what is called an unqualified right to take your benefits before 57, confirmed by your scheme's own rules on or before the 4th of November 2021. The general age rise applies to you the same as everyone else, regardless of what an old handbook says. Industry estimates from the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association suggest that fewer than 1 in 5 private pension savers actually hold a genuine protected pension age. Most people believe they are the exception. Most people are not. I recently helped a friend check his 1998 pension policy. He was completely convinced he was covered, right up until we found a line buried deep in the small print on the page most people never read, saying his terms were subject to legislative change. That single sentence undid 30 years of assumption in about 10 seconds. The way to actually find out rather than guess is to call your provider directly and ask 2 specific things: whether you hold a protected pension age under the Finance Act 2022, and whether they can send you a written statement confirming it, not a verbal reassurance from a call center script. A document with your name on it. If you do not have that document, plan as though you do not have the protection, because that is the position HMRC will actually take if you ever need to draw on it. If part of you has been half hoping this legislation quietly changes before 2028 so none of this applies, that reaction has a name, and it is completely normal. It is called status quo bias, and it is one of the most human responses there is. Doing nothing feels safer than doing something, even when doing nothing is quietly the riskier choice. Nobody wants to spend an afternoon reading pension paperwork on the chance that the rules shift back in their favor before the deadline arrives. You are allowed to feel a flash of anger about this too. You have spent years, maybe decades, working toward a specific number, a specific age, a specific plan, and now the goalposts have moved with only a couple of years' notice. That frustration is not you overreacting. Anyone in your position, 24 months from a finish line that just moved, would feel the same way. Here is a small shift that tends to help. Instead of framing this as losing 2 years, frame it as buying 2 years of certainty. The moment you know your exact gap in months and your exact bridge number in pounds, this whole situation stops being a vague dread sitting in the back of your mind and becomes a line item you can actually plan around. Uncertainty is what wears people down. A number, even an unwelcome one, is something you can act on. If any part of this has felt like pension panic while you have been watching, that feeling is exactly why this channel exists. We turn that anxiety into a plan you can hold in your hand. Here is everything this comes down to. Check where your birthday falls against the 6th of April, 2028, and work out your exact gap in months. Calculate your resilience number by multiplying that gap by whatever you actually spend each month. Then, if crystallizing a small amount before the deadline makes sense for your situation, have that conversation with your provider well before the 6th of April, 2028 arrives, not the week of. The rules around this are genuinely complicated, layered with terms like crystallization and protected pension age that nobody hands you in plain English. But the math underneath all of it is simple. A gap measured in months, a number measured in pounds, a deadline you now know the exact date of. You have time to prepare for this properly, which is more than a lot of people in this exact birth window realize they have. Subscribe to stay with this channel as the draft legislation moves toward becoming law, because the fine print has a habit of shifting right up until the last vote.